Why does Erin Carter flee to Barcelona with her daughter Harper?
And is this Harper, little young innocent Harper, actually a psychopath?
Will Lena find a path back to her daughter?
Do we ever find out what Aaron's real name is?
Find out as Red and Red Real Reviews dissects the Netflix limited series, Who is Erin Carter?
My God! Okay, it's happening. Everybody stay calm.
What's the
Everybody
procedure,
stay calm.
everyone? What's the procedure?
Stay calm!
Ahoy, ladies! I didn't see you there. Would you guys like to set sail on this ocean of flavor with me? I'll be your captain.
I don't think we figure out exactly who we are all at once.
So it learns information about me?
Now, say my name.
Dude, if you think that's bad, go to Google Earth and type in your address.
And I knew exactly what to do, but in a much more real sense, I had no idea what to do.
Maybe I don't want you to feel like you stand out.
Sometimes you gotta work a little so you can ball a lot.
Identity theft is not a joke, Jim. Millions of families suffer every year.
A lion doesn't concern himself with the opinions of a sheep.
Michael! Oh, that's funny. Michael!
Heisenberg. You're goddamn right.
But it's always a good idea to demonstrate to your coworkers that you are capable of withstanding a tremendous amount of pain.
The Lannisters send their regards.
I've been staring at this board for days.
Mac, half the employees in this building have been made up. This office is a goddamn ghost town.
Dracarys.
And welcome back to another episode of Red and Red Real Reviews. So today, we've got sort of an exciting show. I want to know what you thought about it, but generally, I was pleased with this show. This was a wild ride for me. I really didn't know much about the show. When we decided that we were going to cover it, I was looking at the synopsis of the show. It says like a British teacher, takes her daughter. It gave like a sentence or two. That's all that I knew about it. So I really wasn't expecting much. I had zero for expectations. And as I started watching it, I thought that the actress who played Erin looked familiar, but I looked up her background. I hadn't seen anything that she was in. So it turned out that I really didn't know any of these actors. These were all kind of unknown names. So yeah, what was your first impression, or what were you expecting going into watching this?
To that point, you're right. Everyone was super fresh, which I actually find myself really liking shows like that. Because we're both big fans of Outer Banks, and other than Chip Eston of Whose Line Is It Anyway, all the kids were fresh faces too.
Virtual unknowns, yeah.
So like I kind of like when shows take that approach with fresh faces and new names, that sort of thing. But I'll plead ignorance on this. I didn't read any synopsis. But when we were looking up shows to do to fill some time before the next one we were planning, I was just scrolling through the regular apps, Paramount, Netflix, Apple, whatever. And Netflix, I see this one, and of course I see the still of course, ironically enough, you don't see that shot until way at the end of the show, but when she's at the kitchen table and she's got the revolver and she's pointing the revolver at the screen. So I was like, well, that could be interesting. Maybe this is like a true life crime thing. I'm like, you know what, me, you like the true crime. I don't. But I like when things are set in a crime sequence in a fictional setting. So I'm like, that could be interesting. I'll go with that.
Yeah, this was a little bit more gory than I was actually expecting. The really crazy like action sequences, I wasn't expecting it to get that bloody or get that. I had to like close my eyes a couple of times in the last couple episodes with those fight scenes where it was getting pretty grisly. So
Hinge to Chinch, are you squeamish?
I'm pretty squeamish. I will close my eyes, and sometimes the sounds is enough to gross me out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
yes.
I'm not squeamish at all. I have a very high tolerance for that. I come from a lot of medical people in my family, so hearing people talk about that side of stuff, it was just normal to me.
Yeah. For me, it's like the sound effects. Like when you know someone's getting like gouged in the eye, it's just like the or like the squishiness noise. It's like this.
Yeah.
It's just the sounds that bother me. So yeah, I wasn't really expecting it to go there. Also wasn't really expecting it sort of was an action, but it was a bit of a crime, story. So let's talk about the clues. Were there any little details or things that sort of, as you were like, okay, where is this going? As it was developing, were there little details or things that allowed you to answer your own questions from the storyline or what was happening?
Well, I probably shouldn't admit this, being that this was a review show, but I don't know whether I have like a subconscious thing in my brain that like keeps me from thinking like that. So I'm like more authentically surprised when the plot's revealed. But I kind of like just watch and don't read into things, and that's my own fault. But at the same time, as things started to unravel, I probably should have suspected Daniel a bit more. Because the scene where he's proposing the tutorship to Erin,
right,
he has this ambiance about him where he's a very big man of influence,
powerful man.
Yeah, and he's like, I'll take care of this Penelope situation, yada yada. And then of course the same scene where they're talking about money. It's like, I'll pay you whatever or double whatever St. Joseph's is gonna pay you as a full-time teacher. And then of course she's got this side thing with Valeria that nobody knows about, where she's got to pay her off, and she asks Daniel about a sign-on bonus, and Jordi's like, whoa, we're not that hard up for cash. And and Daniel like doesn't even blink an eye. He's like, oh yeah, I can give you a sign-on bonus, sure. So like I probably should have used those hints to pinpoint that he was a big player in this kind of drug bust or organized crime circuit, but I didn't. Maybe I'm just a dummy. I don't know.
No, I mean, I have to say, I do watch a lot of shows, with my husband, and he's always predicted everything in shows, and he was kind of in the room like during most of the show, so he wasn't watching it with me, but he was kind of aware. He would watch it every few minutes. And with shows, he's usually like, he always predicts what's going to happen. He's like, I'll tell you right now, this is going to happen and this is going to happen. And he's like, I write these shows. Like, it's a joke that like, he's in the writer's room because he always successfully predicts all the shows that we watch. But this show, I have to say, was not extremely predictable. And that's what I liked about it. I kind of felt like, there were indications at the beginning. I was like, the very first 5 minutes of the show, I was like, okay, the reason that she's going somewhere else with her daughter is because maybe the father is abusive or the father is involved in organized crime or something. So I was trying to like come up with reasons for things from the beginning, but I didn't really end up being right in a lot of the things that I predicted. The only thing that I think I definitely noticed at the very beginning and didn't really think more of it is the fact that Harper really didn't look like Erin, right?
Yeah.
Visually. So I was like, okay, well, maybe she just looks more like her father, who we don't know who he is,
right.
So that could be very possible. But then, when the whole thing came out that Harper wasn't her biological daughter, I was like, why did I not see that? Like, I was saying in my head, she doesn't look like her, but like, for some reason, they were kind of trying to lead you the other way whenever you had a guess about what was going to happen. So it wasn't super, super predictable, which was great.
You questioned the story, and then you questioned yourself, and then the authenticity was presented back to you in a nice little bow.
And then another thing that like kind of made me question, I thought that like, didn't Penelope tell Olivia or something that she thought that Harper, that Harper, she's a little psychopath. She beat up Antonio or, whatever it was. Like, so then, the fact that Harper is like getting stunned, she's seeing all these, she's getting into like a trance and she's seeing all these like this evil like deer person. I'm like, man, and I was like, is this going to turn to a horror thing? Like, is she like a messed up psychopath? Like, did something happen to her when she was a kid? Is that why, they left her father or, and then the more, they're showing the heists and everything, I'm seeing Lena with the deer mask and I'm like, oh, she's having the very vague memories of when she was a kid. Like, I don't remember anything from when I was 3-4 years old. Like, I don't expect that, anyone who is, taken by someone at the age of 5 would like, my husband was kind of saying, well, why wouldn't she remember that was her mom? And I was like, I don't remember anything at 3 years old. Do you? Like, so it was all very plausible. And when I started seeing that there were explanations for things, I was like, okay, I'm intrigued. Like, this isn't very predictable. It's kind of going a little bit different way than I thought.
Yeah, and that's the masks and the nightmares is actually a good example of how they covered their tracks. I thought the show covered their tracks a lot very well also.
Yes.
Because you almost didn't have the opportunity to pick things out and say, okay, well, X and Y happened, so I'm expecting Z now. Like when Daniel revealed himself in the scene where Emilio's trying to hunt down Moses, who he thinks is the informant, he wanted just being one of these henchmen. And Daniel comes out, I'm like, I had like that, whoa, surprise reaction.
Yeah. I was like, oh, exactly. Yeah. I was like, it made so much sense, but why didn't I see it? And that was the great thing that kept you guessing, is that, you weren't left wondering about things for too long. It wasn't like there was a question that came up and you had to wait 6 episodes to find out. It rolled on pretty quickly. And it was always moving. And that was the great part about it, that kept it captivating. I mean, I wasn't bored at all. And that's very rare because I'm always constantly bored with a lot of these shows that, very slow going or.
No, and even with the episodes being in that 45-50 minute to an hour range, they all felt like they were really 20-minute episodes because it was nonstop. And maybe it was nonstop because there were only 7 episodes. And of course, we don't have a 7-hour flight to blame on it this time.
Right.
But maybe it's just because of the condensed episode schedule. It had to keep moving to stay the time. But even in that, it still didn't feel rushed. It's like, oh, I'm at the end of an episode. Okay.
I agree. Yeah. I think the way that the story played out was very equal, very even. I didn't have any problems with oh, why did they rush through that? But why did they take so long to get through? It was very evenly paced. And that was another strength of it, I think.
I have to ask, what was hubby's batting average?
What?
How many things did he say? This is going to happen. That's going to happen. That he was
oh, geez. Right, you know what? No, he was wrong. I'm trying to remember what the main thing was. I think was it something about Lena, or he was like, oh, well, that's going to happen. And it didn't end up happening. So that's how I knew that it really wasn't predictable, is because he didn't get everything right for once.
Nostradamus.
Yeah. So going off of, just the fast-paced nature of the show, there were some lines that were stuck in there that kind of made me laugh. And I just thought that was interesting because it was kind of a drama. So there were a couple funny lines in there, or there were a few lines that were symbolic and very deep. So there was one funny line I noted and one deep, profound quote that I noted. So the first one is when there was that whole snafu with Erin breaking into that guy's house for Emilio, and then it ended with her jumping into the water, and then she had to go to some little shop or something and buy a t-shirt, and then she had to go do the interview. And I remember when she's talking about it with Penelope, she's like, well, it's no wonder your interview went terribly. Like, you were wearing a shirt that said life's a bitch. And then So Erin corrects her and she said, the t-shirt said life's a beach. Like, correcting her after she, talked about how her interview just went like the worst possible way. So I thought that was funny.
I noticed you learned your lesson from Hijack and didn't try to say it in an English accent.
Yeah.
One of mine that I thought was funny or maybe kind of cutesy was when Erin came back from. At this point, there were so many times where Erin disappeared from her family. I can't remember which one was which. But at one of them, she came back. She walks up to Harper's room because Jordi tells her that Harper's really upset, didn't know where you were, yada yada yada. She goes upstairs and Harper's mad at her, and she's like, "Well, you can help me out with my family tree." So she starts drawing, and she looks at her. She goes like, "Just so you know, this is my angry face." Of course, Erin goes, "That's a good angry face, but you are smiling a little."
Yeah.
So I thought
noticed that one.
little lighthearted.
Yeah, that one was cute.
My other two are also pretty lighthearted. So, do you have we want to talk about your serious one, or let's stay lighthearted?
Yeah, let's stay lighthearted. Let's do your other lighthearted ones.
One of my other ones was early on. Actually, I guess they're both Penelope quotes. She was something else.
She's sassy.
Yeah. But when Erin's got to run off, I think it's actually to go to Augustine's house, Del Emilio. And she's trying to get out of the pool. She's like, "No, I want to stay with my friends." So she's like, "All right, whatever, I gotta go." She goes ask Spinelli to watch her. They go back and forth having their little, catty mom argument or whatever. And Penelope looks at her and says, "Well, Harper really could use a home cooked meal, so we'll keep her for lunch after we leave." And I'm like, "Oh, like twist the knife over here."
Yeah, that was cold. I noticed that.
And then the other one is when towards the end, when I know we'll get into it a little later on, but when Penelope kind of has her, I don't want to, it's not comeuppance, but turning out to be a half decent person or whatever.
Transformation.
Yeah. And they wind up at this party, and Erin's like, people are, and of course Penelope's rushing off to see her friends or whatever, and Erin says something like, "People are trying to kill me because I wanted to sit down and shut up." And of course Penelope thinks, "Oh yeah, no, that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna tell my husband all about himself,"
right?
That sort of thing. And Erin goes, No, that wasn't a metaphor. Like, people are actually trying to chase me down and kill me. I thought that was pretty funny too, especially in this like heat of the moment where you're running for your life because all these thugs and goons are after
literally
you. Yeah,
right. Yeah, and I think so the profound quote that I really liked, I just thought it was good writing. When Jordi says to her, "Well, you need to tell me what's going on." So she, lies to him again about how she's an alcoholic, which is not true.
Yeah.
So she goes to an AA meeting, and she gives her little spiel, and then she's diving into the refreshments afterward, and this lady basically calls her out, and the lady basically can tell that she's lying. So she says to her, "Give me a minute where you tell me something real." She's like, literally just 60 seconds. Just tell me something that's real about what you said up there, because I know that you're lying. And I thought that was really interesting. Just getting to the heart of her lying over and over again, and even to strangers. It wasn't even her family anymore. It was just, she was lying to a whole room full of strangers and didn't really care about it. So I thought that was really profound and getting to the situation. So kind of segueing into that.
Yeah, I can't remember. Was it the same conversation or was it a different conversation with Penelope or someone else where she says, "If you're worried about your husband leaving you, then do you really know your husband?" or something like that? Or knowing the real you or something like that. Yeah,
I don't remember who that conversation was between, but I remember what you're talking about.
Yeah. And the kind of like light bulb goes off in her head a little bit. And it also kind of ties to something Emilio said to her, where he said, Jordi is not necessarily angry at you. He's angry, but he doesn't want to give up on you. Or if he would have given up on you, if he wanted to give up on you, he would have already, or something like that. So there was kind of like a tie-in from that conversation.
Yeah, there was, because him being Jordi's best friend, like his opinion mattered.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think the whole AA thing was a little bit ridiculous to me. Like I just when she was like, well, the thing is, I'm an alcoholic. I'm just like, oh Lord, like why don't you just tell him, like this dude is a good guy. Just tell him.
I know. So you love Jordi. Everyone loves Jordi.
I know. We'll talk a little bit more about Jordi coming up, but I just, that being said, there were some things I found like a little bit silly or unbelievable. And, my husband was the same. He was like, that would never happen. Like, why would they do that? So one of the things that we were calling out was, I think like the first thing that we noticed was when Erin was, in the midst of the heist with Lena and all those people, and she went into like a storage room and she fished her phone out from like above something. So she's in like this, it was like a storage room, it's very narrow, and she's literally has her back to like the entrance of the storage room, and she's speaking sort of loudly on the phone, and she's speaking to the CIO guy, her boss,
Armstrong,
because she's undercover. So, but she's like speaking very loud, and we're like, okay, your back is to the entrance, first of all, not very smart. So like you wouldn't see if anyone was standing there listening. Second of all, you're speaking very loudly. So like, how would they not hear you? But like, you're supposed to be undercover. Like, shouldn't you be a little bit smarter?
And on top of that, she just went through this kind of traumatic situation where they offed Scotty or Artie or whatever his name was. So like, you figure if that happens and everyone runs off and she goes downstairs, I'm thinking in the back of my mind, someone's gonna walk up and check on her, say, "Hey, you okay?"
Yeah, I was.
You're gonna blow your cover.
I was waiting for somebody to walk up and blow her cover, to be like, I knew that you were the rat, like I knew. That's what I was waiting for. So that moment was a little bit ridiculous. And then another thing that I thought was a little bit crazy is that, there were so many moments where Erin was just going off to do this, and, had plans to do things as a family. And she's like, oh, I forgot I, was going to do yoga. And I just don't understand why Jordi didn't see, like, maybe he just didn't understand that something was really wrong, but he also didn't see that something was up with like Emilio and Erin, that they were like, definitely talking. Like he just didn't see it, was oblivious to it. So I thought that, when he was mad with her and that he was trying to get her to tell the truth, I thought that he would have suspected at some point, like, oh, are you having an affair with Emilio? Like, how could his mind not have gone there with the way that they were acting weird whenever, like, it was like a, Amelia was over for like a little barbecue or something, and like they'd be talking, or, like, how could he not have known something was up with them? Like, I really thought he was going to accuse them of having an affair or something. And I was a little surprised that didn't happen.
Or maybe just didn't want to know. Like how many times do couples have an argument or some kind of tension, and they wind up like burying their head in the sand, for lack of a better word.
True. Yeah, that's true.
Or maybe it was just, we both saw it. Everyone watching the show could see it. We both recognized Jordi as a stand-up good guy. So maybe he just wanted to be this loyal, faithful husband and not accuse her of it. You know what I mean? Like, so maybe it was kind of ignorance buried in good intentions, something like that. Yeah,
maybe, or he was just really oblivious and he didn't see it.
Yeah.
And then there were a few things So one that I thought was kind of funny, kind of going off of like the being undercover and almost blowing your cover thing. When Emilio's talking to Olivia and Erin is calling him, I'm just like, I just couldn't get over how bad of a liar Emilio was. I was like, he was not convincing at all, but like, he's a cop. Like, shouldn't he be a better liar?
A detective on top of
right.
that. Not like a street cop, beat cop.
I was just like cringing. I was just like, she does not believe you, dude. Like, you're not doing a good job of this at all. So that was kind of funny.
Well,
and then, you know,
look at these situations Emilio gets himself in. Clearly, he's not very good. Clearly, he's not very good at keeping it cover.
Right. Yeah. And then, you know, I think you kind of wrote about a few like kind of inconsistencies or like things that are odd. Like when Penelope, you know, when Erin jumps in the car with Penelope and Penelope's like, oh, we're going to so-and-so's birthday party. She's like, I can't go to a birthday party, but like they still go there. And Erin gets out and she's literally all bloody. Her face is all bloody. And then, you know, this was a part where Mike was watching and he was like, you know, there was a point where she was standing there and then she kind of like, but there were a bunch of people around and he's like, why isn't anyone reacting to the fact that this woman is bloodied and beaten? He's like, they're not even looking twice. Like, he's like, everyone would be like, oh my God, are you okay? Like, what is going on? What is wrong with it? Like, so that was something he called out. And then
they're hardly dressed like they belong in this Roman Colosseum event center. Yeah.
She wasn't dressed in a fancy dress. She was wearing like a baseball tee. Like, yeah, very. That was like a little bit of an alternate reality thing where you're like, why aren't people reacting to that? Like, why isn't there a real reaction to that? And then also, I mean, we'll talk about a little bit more at the end, but he kind of thought that the whole end with Lena wasn't really necessary. He just thought it was very awkward. Like, you know, as Erin is sitting there crying because she realizes that Lena like blew herself up. You know, he said, he was like, okay, you go over here and do nothing and just sit there and I'll go get blown up, like kind of unnecessarily for us both. Like,
I thought that was pretty profound. Because it was the situation where Erin volunteers to sacrifice herself because she knows that, like, hey, I raised your daughter all these years and you never got a chance to know this amazing little girl. So you go be with her, do whatever you got to do. You know, a lot of this is my fault. I'll go take care of it. And Lena says, stops her, says no. And she goes to be the sacrifice. And I thought that was a little bit profound because of the scene where they're at Olivia's house and Olivia's talking to Jordi and Harper's up on the roof or in the garden or something. And Lena goes to find her and she's like, come to me. I'm your mom. Come to me. Come to me. And she's like, where's my mom? I thought you were going to help my mom. You know, like Lena obviously sees that she doesn't have a maternal place in this child's life anymore. So for her she saw Harper's room, like how like, you know, her room was just so nice and so lived in and she's loved and she knows that she's part of a family. Yeah, I mean, I understood that. I didn't know that it was necessary for her to sacrifice herself. Like, is there a situation where they could have, you know, shot somewhere to like distract all the guys? Or like, I feel like there could have been another way. Like, why did she have to sacrifice herself? I don't know. The explosion I found was probably a little, I guess, extreme for lack of a better word.
Right.
She had a high vantage point. She's laying suppressive fire down on the thugs. Like, they're clearly distracted. And she's got cover, so she's not out in the open. Like, when they set up this plan, I'm thinking the person providing cover is going to run out in the middle of wide open space and get shot, you know?
Right.
But she's got a good vantage point. She has cover. So blowing up the oil tanks didn't seem like, okay, I don't think you had to kill yourself. You're in a pretty good spot.
I agree. I completely agree.
But over
Yeah.
dramatization, I guess, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, what were your inconsistencies or just like, oh, okay, like that's a little far-fetched or
One was a little bit of a small one. So when the thugs come back to Erin's house to after Daniel says, kill Erin, make sure the kid's not collateral damage. And she's running away from him. And one of them, the older fellow who was one of the thugs, he walks up to her, she throws him in the pool. She runs off, she goes to the RV, she gets in a fight with another person, yada yada yada. The older fellow comes back up to the RV while she's trying to escape and starts laying fire into the RV. I'm like, this dude just landed in a pool. That gun is soaking wet. There is no way that thing should be functional. So that was just, but I get like, maybe it's the Hollywood magic thing, whatever. But that was just like a little something like, no, that gun shouldn't work.
a little silly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The bigger one for me is, and it kind of like, you kind of figured she wasn't going to die because there was another episode left.
Exactly.
But when Lena shoots Erin and she's laying down, and she pretty much goes to the ground right away. And she's bleeding out. She's in the hot sun. She's on top of a mountain. It's dry. There's nobody around. There's nobody that can call for help, that sort of thing.
She doesn't have her phone.
Yeah. And they kind of explained it away a little bit when she gets back to the house and Jordi's patching her up and he says the bullet went right through. I'm like, all right. I mean, obviously it wasn't a lethal wound, but obviously it wasn't a lethal wound because she's up and walking around. But even it not being a lethal wound, she was still shot. She's still bleeding out.
Right.
You'd think she's up on the mountain for an hour or two before the rest of the story resumes. She's not going to get up right away. She's in shock, probably.
Yeah.
The fact that she was able to get up, get in the car, drive back home, bounce around a couple places, and then fight all these thugs. It's like, you should be in dire need of water and
like, are you superhuman? Yeah. Yeah, I kind of felt like that a little bit too. It was just like, yes, we know that she's, she handles herself well, but nobody could unless you're immortal.
Yeah. We're making it seem like we hated this show and both like that.
No, I didn't at all. Okay, so moving to characters. So I know we talked a little bit about Penelope. So which characters did you feel a certain type of way for at the beginning, and then by the end you felt differently about them?
Amelia was pretty consistent. I liked Amelia a lot.
Amelia was cool.
But the one that was a consistent I don't want to say transactional, but neutral, I guess, relationship was Erin and Olivia. And in the beginning, you think like, okay, Olivia's got this chick's back. She's trying to get her full-time job. She's trying to put her in the best position possible. And then Erin finds out that Olivia is the one that badmouthed her in the job interview. So it's like, whoa, where did that come from? And then on top of that, she winds up in the bad situation where Lena's extorting her to find out where she is, and she winds up calling her to tell her. Of course, it's too late because Lena's already found Erin. But so Olivia's relationship with her kind of evolves throughout the story, where she's an ally, then she's an antagonist, then she's an ally again. And so I found that one kind of interesting wheel to follow, so to speak.
Yeah, you really thought when Lena came to Olivia's house, you're like, Olivia's gonna sell her out. Like, she's just gonna be like, I don't want to be her. But she didn't sell her out. So
right.
I mean, she really was a good friend in the end. But yeah, wasn't it Daniel who was like, oh, well, it's always the friends that are the ones that you got to watch out for. I think it was him that said that. So it was like, ooh, not Olivia. Like, she was the one that, wanted her to get the job. Like, that can't be.
No, nobody can stab you in the back quite like a friend can or something like that.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think, yeah, Olivia was kind of a roller coaster, a little bit of a development, but Penelope was definitely like the most improved. She was such a jerk at the beginning, and then by the end you were, you kind of thought she was like a little bit funny. You were kind of like rooting for her, and not even just the viewer rooting for her, but you kind of felt towards the end like her and Erin were actual friends.
Yeah, she kind of, you thought she was more of an antagonist, but maybe like as things came to light, she was just more of an anti-hero. Where it was just kind of, this is not just a random side character, it's just kind of like a rub to kind of just maybe like things like that distract you from trying to dig into the storyline to figure out where it's going to go.
Maybe,
a little bit of a distraction technique.
True. And I think, it wasn't so that she was just being malicious. Like, she wasn't just being a jerk to be a jerk because she wanted to make Erin's life miserable. You kind of find out that she admittedly like is miserable in her own life. And, she's struggling with her identity and who she is. And that's why she's acting the way she is. She's kind of masking it. So you can kind of sympathize with her, like Erin kind of is like, oh, well, she's, got this big house and all this money and her husband buys her whatever she wants. Like, oh, why should I feel bad for her? But it's just not what it seems. Her life is not what it seems. So you do have sympathy for her, genuine sympathy for what she goes through.
She even says when they go to the party, like Erin's saying, well, you should do this, you should do X, Y, Z, blah, blah, blah. She's like, no, I can't do that. You can do that. You're strong, that sort of thing. And I was like, oh. So maybe there's a jealousy factor almost. Maybe.
Yeah. And also, another jealousy factor too could be like, I actually really liked the scene where, Harper was being watched by her because she's like, oh, come over here. You have some knots in your hair. And she's combing out her hair. Kind of makes you wonder, like, is she jealous of Erin because she has a daughter and she's got a son and maybe she always wanted a daughter? So kind of seeing that little moment with her and Harper was sweet, that she was, treating her very sweetly and nicely. Yeah. So I liked that arc. I liked the arc of Penelope. I thought it was great.
I did too. And like, it was a side story, but it didn't distract from the story in a major way. It distracted us a little bit to maybe like paying attention too much to the big stuff, but it was kind of like a nice, it was kind of, well, I don't want to say nice, but it was like a good distraction, a positive distraction.
It was gradual too. It wasn't too like, oh, okay, she wouldn't be acting like that, like, on this in the snap of the finger. She, it was a gradual, like, natural arc.
Yeah. And then the other one to me, of course, was Lena, because they were very close when they were when Erin was on the inside job.
Yes.
And then of course she thinks Lena dies, so she takes Harper, she raises her as her own, and Lena's gung-ho to get Harper back, and she's like, I'm gonna kill this woman, she stole my daughter, yada yada yada. And it winds up being a situation where she recognizes Erin gave Harper this wonderful normal life, and she even says it like, you gave her this life I could never have, at least at that time. And I think that was part of the thought process that leads to her sacrifice, or her deciding to be the sacrificial lamb, because like, she has a good life, you gave that to her, so you go be the one that saves the day.
Right. And they have closure, right before she dies. They have that moment where like she's literally holding Erin's face, and they're both crying, and they're kind of working out who's gonna go to bat and who's gonna get them through this. And yeah, I mean, in that moment they kind of make peace with each other, when earlier like they were trying to kill each other.
Yeah, in a bad way.
Yeah, so it comes full circle. And another thing, I do think Harper had a little bit of an arc. I'll admit I didn't really love her in the beginning. She was kind of a brat, like,
she was a teenager in an 8-year-old's body.
Right. And then, especially, we'll talk more about this in a second, but when she was just like a little demon child, I almost wrote it in my notes. She was a little demon child for Jordi, so she like knocks the plate and she's like, you're not my dad. I was just like, oh, you little brat, don't disrespect Jordi that way.
Yeah.
And
I thought you meant demon child because of all her demonic satanic drawings.
well, that too, but also like just the look in her eyes when she pushed that plate off the table, I was like, no, you are not doing that to Jordi. He's just trying to take care of you, girl.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I mean that brings me to the next subject, which is justice for Jordi. So I felt like he was such a good guy, understanding, just, the perfect husband, just kind of rolled with everything. But for some reason, he's the one that just gets shit on the entire show.
Yeah. Yeah, he can't. Erin won't tell him the truth. She won't disclose who she really is or anything about her past. He's just kind of going along with the flow, and as things blow up, he's like, what is going on? And obviously he's not finding out anything until things really come to more eruption. But
yeah,
like my first reaction to Jordi, like after a couple scenes, was this is just a good man, a good father, and a good husband.
Yeah,
I put through this whirlwind.
I didn't get it. It just disappointed me when she lied to him about the alcoholism. I was like, this is a good guy who's, if you come clean, he's going to like, maybe he may not react favorably at the beginning, but he'll come to understand and he'll be there for you anyway. Like, you just need to give him some time but you can be truthful with it. Like, if he can't be truthful with Jordi, he can't be truthful with any. Like, this is the person that you can be truthful with, and he will accept you for who you are. And he did.
And he proved it at the end when he says to her, I always knew who you were. Somehow, I always knew you were someone to risk everything for their family. The rest is just details.
Right. He basically was like, that doesn't matter to me. Like, I know genuinely who you are. Everything else doesn't matter.
Yeah. Yeah. I knew I wrote down the exact quote or paraphrase the exact quote word from Emilio, where he's like, he's mad at you, but he won't give up on you. Something, paraphrasing a little bit, but something. So like, you kind of knew that final scene with them was gonna happen because like you said, he's the guy. He's the guy you want to. He's the guy you want to be with. He's the guy you want to. Any girl wants to marry. Like, he's gonna be there. He's gonna stand by you.
Right, and furthermore, he's raising this kid that is not his.
Right.
And
you wouldn't know. You wouldn't know.
Right. And that's why I loved, that's why I kind of, at the beginning, Harper was like, oh, it's like, come on, don't be such a brat. And then by the end, when she just started calling him dad, I was like, yes, that's justice for Jordi. He just wants to be called dad. Like, that's it. That's all he wants, probably.
Yeah. No, Jordi was like the what's the word? The golden egg, maybe, of the show. He was the one as a viewer you just want to protect the whole time.
Yes.
Infallible, completely infallible.
Yes. You didn't want anything bad to happen to him. So when they took him and Harper, I was like, no, please not Jordi. I was like, Emilio was enough. Like, that was a bummer.
Yeah.
That was a huge bummer.
Yeah, I liked Emilio a lot too.
Yeah, I just could not have taken it if they had killed Jordi too. So, I mean, I think things happened how they should have. Overall, did you like the end, and did you feel good about it?
I did. I felt like, especially for the amount that was happening in this show, they cleaned everything up very nicely. There was not a lot of loose ends left untouched. The only one that I'm kind of unclear about, other than Erin's real name, but I kind of get that. I think that's almost like an intended mystery.
Yes.
The only thing that really kind of not bothered me, but I would have liked to know a little more, is there was a scene after Emilio's funeral where Erin's trying to get Tabarez, his boss, to go to look into Daniel more, and he kind of brushes her off and says, "Stay out of this. Be a school teacher, or you're a school teacher, or whatever." Like, he's trying to get her to keep her nose clean and stay out of everything. So like, I almost kind of, after seeing, after going through this whirlwind transformation of Daniel as this crime boss, drug lord type of character. Tabarez, I almost kind of got this vibe from Tabarez that he was a little bit of a dirty cop almost.
Yeah. I mean,
maybe I'm off base, but maybe I was just reading into it. Maybe I'm off base, but maybe I was just looking out for Erin. But a lot of people in the show said they were looking out for Erin.
Wait, so was Tabarez the police chief guy, the mean old guy?
Yeah, the mean. Yeah,
the chief or the
Emilio's
captain
boss.
or
yeah.
Yeah, you know what? That didn't really go anywhere. I think he really just didn't take what she said seriously at all. And I mean, I guess maybe that was just a plot device, but yeah, I just assumed it was him brushing her off. But I mean, it could have been that he was, protecting or tied to Daniel. Sure. I mean, it's possible.
Yeah. That one, like I said, maybe I'm reading into it, maybe I'm off base, but that one it felt like there was something there, especially after seeing the whole Daniels and Emilio interaction. And I kind of I want to know if something's there.
Yeah. I mean, generally, I think, even with things ended the way it should have, Daniel was a problem, so she took him out. Like, it was either him or her, so she had to take him out. It was sad about, Lena sacrificing herself, but like you said, she kind of saw that she had no place in Harper's life. And I think she knew that back then she wasn't a good mother. She admittedly would stick 3- and 4-year-olds and 5-year-olds in front of the TV and then go out on a heist. So I think she knew that she wasn't a good mother and that she wasn't really meant to be a mother. So I mean, I do think things kind of ended where it made sense for me. I wasn't like, oh no, like, why are they doing that? Why did they write it this way? I actually felt pretty generally satisfied by it in the end.
Yeah, I was not left unfulfilled by any part of the ending. Between the Lena thing and then the Jordi thing at the end, it kind of reinforces themes of forgiveness, acceptance, that sort of thing. So I really was not left unfulfilled by any kind of choice the writers made in ending the show or ending the season.
Yeah, and so on that note, so this was advertised as a limited series. But we
reviewed 2 of them. We loved them both, and it's like, limited series, no.
But this aired, I think, at first at the end of August. So it's been about a month that it's been out. So I've it was in the top 10, up until like last week, I think. So it has, the streaming numbers are great. I have seen on the interwebs, I did a little searching, and it seems like, there has been no official remark yet that there will be a second season, but that's not to say that people don't think that there could potentially be a second season, especially with the way that the numbers were good, the way that they sort of left the end open, when they're at that resort, and then you remembered his name, Armstrong. Yeah. So when he, when she sees him and approaches him, and he kind of, says something to her that's a little bit vague. So it kind of leads you to believe that, like, okay, well, maybe if there were a second season, she would go to work for him. If she were to go to work for him, knowing that she's got this family that she cares about, I'm assuming there would be full transparency, like with Harper knowing what she's doing, with Jordi knowing what she's doing.
They saw her in action.
Right. I mean, I would assume that, like, she would be okay with it. And the fact that she says, I am Erin Carter, like, it's like her original real name doesn't matter anymore. She's not, she's not Kate. She's really not Erin, but she feels like she's lived in this identity of Erin where she feels like she really is Erin now.
Yeah.
So,
and like I'm okay not, and I feel like normally something like this would bother me, but I feel okay with not knowing who her real identity is. And
yeah.
And on top of that, when they were getting her into the undercover gig, and they were looking through the names, and she goes to Kate, she scans over Erin Carter. So I feel like that was kind of a profound moment to, okay, she likes this name. There's something about this name.
I did notice that. Yeah. And I the whole time, I mean, I'll be honest, when my husband would come in the room, I'd say, oh, I wonder if they're going to say what her real name is. Oh, what's her real name?
Yeah.
And, so I was kind of wondering the whole time if they're ever going to reveal it. I thought maybe they would reveal it in the last episode, but I mean, that's not to say they're not leaving the door open for exploring more of her past. I mean, they went into, her being 6 years old and being abandoned pretty much, but they didn't really go into her years in the foster system. They could do flashbacks, if the show were to go forward. So they could do more flashbacks of what her life was like. Maybe they would reveal what her original name was. So I really felt like they were leaving the door open with some things, but like you said, it didn't feel like there were a lot of loose ends. It feel like they tied up everything in a nice, pretty bow for the most part.
No, it was a clean ending. It was a clean break for the season, series, whatever. And if there is another one, it kind of jumps to a fresh situation where Armstrong, maybe he like pries her back and forth, like, come work for me, be an operative, that sort of thing. And maybe she's tepid about it, so that kind of opens up some drama at home, or not drama, but maybe tension at home, and Jordi has to kind of push her to do it. Like, we saw what you do, you're a badass, go do it, be an operative, go.
But also another angle too, there was that you could tell that there was chemistry between them, her and Armstrong, and then didn't he say like, I'm married? You could tell that you could tell that there was a chemistry with them. So would that be a future conflict that, Jordi knows that she's working with this guy and he seems like, oh, well, you guys have a history, or you look like you have a history, or, whatever it is, like maybe there's some jealousy there, or, that's kind of a weird situation that rubs him the wrong way. So yeah, I could definitely see this Armstrong guy being involved if there's going to be a second season. It's just, we'll find out.
Yeah.
I would love a second season of this show.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it very much as well. And if they make a second one, I will gladly sit there. Please have some more.
Yeah. Okay, so I guess we'll find out, and if there is a second season, we'll be sure to cover it. So make sure you follow along with us on Instagram and TikTok. It's at Binge the Ginge with dots between the words, and then of course Nutmeg, the number 2 Palmetto. Give us both follows there, and then stay tuned to the show on all of our platforms. We have YouTube, Rumble, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts. Until the next real review, Red and Red signing out. Bella ciao.
In less than an hour, aircraft from here will join others from around the world. And you will be launching the largest aerial battle in the history of mankind.
Hey guys, you ready to let the dogs out?
What?
Do what?
I'd like to be pimps from Oakland or cowboys from Arizona, but it's not Halloween.
Let the dogs out, like, who let the dogs out? Who brought this guy along?
Slow ahead. I can go slow ahead. Come on down and chump some of this shit.
Grow up, Peter Pan. Don't chocolate.
X never, ever marks the spot.
One more thing. Do me a favor. Don't go chasing waterfalls.
You did. You crazy son of a bitch, you did.
Mankind, Words should have new meaning for all of us today. We can't be consumed by our petty differences anymore.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
No. Try not. Do. Or do not. There is no try.
All right. Then you do us proud. Because I don't want no scrubs.
Don't act so surprised, Your Highness. You weren't on any mercy mission.
Not from tyranny, oppression, or persecution, but from annihilation. We're fighting for our right to live.
Snakes. Why did it have to be snakes?
I'll take care, all right? None but love for you. None but love for you.
X marks the spot.
Have any clue what's about to happen to him?
Oh, not a chance in hell. Good night.
Peace! Fire, you son of a...
Toodaloo, motherfucker.
Hey, ain't too proud to beg.
Come on.
What?
It's not funny anymore.
I don't know what you're talking about. I'm not trying to see references. I don't. Still, nothing. I swear to you.
But as the day when the world declared in one voice, we will not go quietly into the night, we will not vanish without a fight, we're going to live on. We're going to survive. Today, we celebrate our Independence Day.